I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Spandrew Spice.
Welcome to Deep Cuts, the podcast where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, the outs, and the nitty-gritty so you can appear like an interesting and idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function. Today's topic is...
the Cat Dancers.
Who were the Cat Dancers? Well, they were a trio of performers who embellished their dance routines with captive, large cats. Originally a duo, Ron and Joy Holiday teamed up with Chuck Lizza and embarked on a 30-year odyssey of fame, love, and devastating loss. Because when they added a white tiger named Jupiter into their orbit, the dance troupe paid the ultimate price. But were the Cat Dancers simply victims of a series of catastrophes? Or was there more prowling beneath the surface? Act 1. It takes 3 to tango. Ron Guay was born in 1939 near the small town of Bidford, Maine. Growing up on a farm wasn't easy for Ron, and despite his family's insistence that he become a farmhand, the flamboyant child had other aspirations. Ditching horses and hoes for a gig at the local cinema, young Ron became utterly captivated by the allure of stardom. Just a few miles away from the Guay family farm, Joy Gagnon had similar growing pains. Born with amblyopia, sometimes referred to as a lazy eye, Joy was often bullied for her looks. The childhood cruelty Joy experienced led her to form a lifelong fascination with beauty and extravagance. But after her mother arranged for some consolatory ballet lessons, Joy set her sights on one thing above all else: performative dance. To Joy's delight, classmate Ron Guay was also ready to shirk his rural digs for a life of glitz and glam. And as bored teens bonding over ballet school, Ron and Joy shared a common interest: getting the heck out of Maine. By bleaching her hair and styling her makeup, Ron molded his friend into a kind of Hollywood starlet that they both idolized. Entrenched in the high standards of Adagio ballet, the pair's shared fantasies seemed tangible, perhaps for the first time. Like many kids in rural America, Joy was raised in a devoutly Christian home. Even at a young age, she knew the life of a dancer was certainly not akin to the one of the cloth. But after seeking advice from a nun and former teacher, Joy was urged to go and live the life that she so desperately coveted, the life of a dancer. When Ron and Joy finally left rustic Maine for the theaters of New York City, success quickly found them. Their striking features and endearing routines defined the duo. And as they refined their Adagio skills, the pair were soon featured in Broadway productions like My Fair Lady. Although their relationship began as an earnest friendship, Ron and Joy became romantic during their first years as dancers. With their newfound love of an uncompromising commitment to the arts, the pair married in 1959, each taking Holiday as showbiz surnames.
Oh my God, that's an option?
Dude, can we get married and rename
No, I was
ourselves?
gonna say, you mean we could get married and then just like choose a special little last name for ourselves?
I love this. As newlyweds, the Holidays led various dance companies on Broadway and beyond, but the dynamic duo proved to be so compelling, they eventually earned status as headliners. With their act in high demand among patrons of the uppermost crust, Ron and Joy traveled across the world. The pair were so renowned for their prowess on the dance floor, they wound up performing for President Kennedy at the White House. And by the time the Holiday act reached near critical mass, the pair had even danced for literal royalty.
What a path for like young freaks. And I say freaks as in like, you know, like freaks and geeks, like people who identify as like outcasts, not as like I'm actually calling them freaks. What a path. Can this even happen anymore? Because like now, if you are like an outcast, you just like get on the internet and you join like a subreddit. Like your story ends there.
Do we think that like Charlie D'Amelio is this? You know what I mean? Like she started and she's like, I feel so like out of touch and no one understands me in my parents' giant mansion with my perfect symmetrical bone structure. I'm just gonna dance my feelings away on the internet. Oh my God, billions of people are seeing me, and now I have a reality TV show and Jimmy Fallon is interviewing me. I've really made it.
Or like the fucking Costco guys. They were on the Tonight Show and they had Jimmy Fallon. And it's like, why are you interviewing these guys?
Yeah.
Because they go to Costco and say boom?
Yeah.
What is happening in this world? That's who's getting on the Tonight Show now.
Yeah.
It's because they're just like, we went to Costco. Boom.
There's some development executive somewhere looking at a photo, like a candid photo of Conan O'Brien touching it and weeping.
Yeah. There's no more room for the sensitive, artistic people anymore. The people who want to dance with cats.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Carson, and tonight we're going to be featuring the cat dancers. It's going to be great. Wow. Wow, they've got cats. Do you hear this, Ed? They've got cats, and they're going to be dancing. Wow. And then following them, the Costco guys. Wow.
With special guest, the Rizzler.
With special guest, the Rizzler and Big Justice. Wow. That's wild. Wow.
They just go to a store and...
They test cookies. I love cookies. Let's do that problematic bit where I pretend to be a fortune teller. I'm going to hold this to my head and it's a cookie. Is it going to be tasty? Big Justice, what do you say? Wow.
I give it 5 booms. Boom, boom, boom.
That was 3, you fucking putz. Get this kid off my show. Wow.
For interest of time, I realized mid-bit that if I actually did 5, it would have felt like forever. So I just magically, realistically didn't do the full 5, but you got the point.
If you weren't 12 years old, I would punch you in the fucking face. Wow. Looking back on their jet-setting lives as ballet dancers, Ron remarked,
"Life was like a fantasy come true. I remember taking a bow and saying, 'Joy, pinch me. It just can't be. Do you know where we're from? I'm from a farm in Maine.'"
As the Holidays danced through a glorious life, the pair achieved their dreams in a way that so few artists ever manage. In fact, Ron and Joy broke the record for the longest-running act at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. From teens to young adults, they accomplished exactly what they intended. But unfortunately for Ron and Joy, the lifespan of a career ballet dancer is incredibly short. By the 1970s, the Holidays began to understand the grim truth of performance. Getting older sucks. And despite what Hollywood action stars might lead you to believe, the human body cannot maintain the feats of youth. Ron and Joy realized that their time in the spotlight as ballet mavens would come to an end, and sensing a need to breathe new life into their act, the Holidays decided to mix up their lifestyle. William Holden, the idea that they were just like, and now we're gonna fuck William Holden is really funny to me. William Holden was a Hollywood legend unlike any other. Star of Stalag 17 and The Wild Bunch, box office dominator throughout the 1950s, Oscar winner, and eternal wanderer, William Holden always yearned for a wilder way of life. When Holden landed in Africa for a visit, he never really looked back, and in 1959, the star founded his own Kenyan safari club and was Hollywood's go-to man for captive big cats. Prior to meeting William Holden, Ron Holiday had already developed a fierce fascination with the exotic cats. In fact, at some point, Ron even began styling his wife in a makeshift cat suit, complete with the requisite ears and tails for their dance shows.
I always had this fantasy of Joy being a real cat, and how to do it, I wasn't sure. Okay, so, I mean, this dude was a furry.
100%.
And because, like, I'm not an expert on furries, I don't know when the actual subculture was established, like maybe it existed earlier than I even know, but because furries just weren't a thing yet, he was like, we gotta get real cats. But all he needed was a fursona, and none of this would have happened.
If only Tumblr had been real in the 70s, these motherfuckers would still be alive. Because of Ron's increasing desire to own his own big cat, and the ever-present decline of their capabilities, the couple began mingling with those in the know. Exotic animals were more abundant among celebrities at one time, and Ron used his connections to ask around. It's unclear exactly when the Holidays first came in contact with William Holden, but Ron eventually got his wish via the Hollywood hero Aladdin. A newborn black leopard was everything Ron Holiday had ever dreamed of. And when Holden offered him the chance to acquire him, well, that was that. Aladdin was the first of many future additions to the holiday household and was flown into New Jersey as a personal gift from Holden. And according to Ron, it was the Wild Bunch gunslinger himself who suggested that he and Joy integrate big cats into their act.
He's like, listen, I don't know what you're planning on doing with this cat. I know I heard you say that thing about how you wished your wife was a real cat. All I'm saying is, like, don't fuck him. Maybe put him in the show, or I don't know. I just like, oh, you guys are dancers. Like, maybe you dance with the cats. Just don't fuck this cat, please.
Ron's like, yeah, I've never really thought about fucking a cat before. I've never thought about that before. That's a good point. No, Ron, I'm saying don't fuck. Yeah, don't fuck the cats. Yeah, I'm never gonna fuck the cats. Yeah.
But seriously though, like, when you hear somebody who's like, I have an obsession with big cats, I want a big cat, and they're like, I've even fantasized about my wife being a cat. Like, you got to be like, this guy wants to fuck these cats. Like, I'm not giving him this cat as a gift. He's definitely going to fuck it.
Wait, first, you have a wife? And two, you want her to be a cat? Right from the get-go, things were not well in Holidayland. From feeding canned cat food to an animal with highly specialized dietary needs, to letting Aladdin sleep in their bed, Ron and Joy made every mistake in the book. It was Joy who first took the initiative to learn how to care for the big captive cat, and in the pre-internet age, she used the library to read up on leopard biology. After over a year of training and cat rearing, Ron and Joy decided it was finally time to add Aladdin to their performances. In a magic-themed portion of the dance show, Joy dressed as a bedazzled black leopard, and she would enter a cage at the front end of the stage. Ron, strapped in tight leather, then ripped a sheet back and forth over the cage, and when Ron tossed the sheet away, Aladdin lay panting in the cage.
And he's like, finally! And then he just drops his pants.
Ron would then distract the audience by leading his pet panther up a ladder to one side of the stage. Once seated, Ron would hold Aladdin's leash and wow the audience with his extremely amateur cat training skills. While the audience attention lay on the wild animal, just feet from their seats, Joy would reappear inside the cage sans cat ears in her most dashing dress. Ron described his early performances as simple illusion, but for its time, it was downright revolutionary. Showgoers were shocked, awed, and filled with wonder. For first-time dabblers in the art of illusion, Ron and Joy had once again obtained a greatness that any magician would be envious of. After this performance, the cat dancers were truly born. So now we got a photo of Aladdin, Ron, and Joy. What do you think?
Ron looks like he's wearing a Halloween costume of a guy from the 60s.
Yep. Also, I'm not gonna lie, Joy, what's up, girl?
Yeah.
You look like you've never seen sunlight. You look like you go to the doctor and they say, you need some vitamin D, and not in a euphemistic way. Like, literally, you need vitamin D pills.
And yeah, he says that, and then he says, but as a side note. Eh?
Shrug? I love her makeup, though. I love the, like, Ice Queen aesthetic. I'm so into it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Joy she's surfing cat.
Yeah, totally.
She's got the Ice Queen themed outfit on. She's looking good. She's looking like, a real performer in a stage illusion show. Comparatively, Ron, he's not really selling it.
Yeah, Ron looks very guy in the back of the orgy that nobody wants to party with.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he's the guy where it's like he goes to an orgy and then somebody's like, just because you go to an orgy, people still don't have to have sex with you. And he's like, fuck.
Yeah, he's at the orgy and he's like, guys, I got some lube. I got some condoms. And everyone that he looks at just kind of like awkwardly like shifts their body weight away and like looks at the floor and pretends like they're on their phone.
He goes to a swingers orgy and every woman he approaches tells him that she has a boyfriend.
Yeah, he's like, I'm fine being a third. And she's like, no, I have a boyfriend. I don't think we're communicating. I'm fine with that. Like, we can just, no, you don't understand.
They put in earbuds and pretend like they are reading a book.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're at an orgy.
Yeah, and she's like, sorry, I can't hear you. I'm listening to The Shins. I can't hear you.
She's like, haven't you read those BuzzFeed articles? It's very rude to try to get a woman to take off her headphones in public. It's like, we're at an orgy.
He just starts crying.
And Aladdin's looking fucking great.
Dude, Aladdin looks so good. As the two untrained cat owners struggled to raise Aladdin, things took a dangerous turn. After Aladdin got too big to sleep in their marital chambers, the Holidays decided to clear out their basement for the big cat. Staked to the floor with a pole and leash, Aladdin's meals were brought down to him every morning by Joy. One such morning, things took a turn for the worse, and Joy Holiday was viciously mauled by Aladdin. The couple knew that they could not seek professional medical help lest they risk losing their beloved pet. With cuts to her arm and head, Ron quickly applied alcohol and mouthwash to her wounds.
What a wild lifestyle change. Like, obviously there's probably required some level of like actual, like you don't just like start living with a leopard in your house unless you like genuinely love these animals. But, you know, prior to this, maybe Ron had these weird fantasies about fucking cats or whatever the hell it was, but I don't think that was the same thing for Joy. Like, she didn't just happen to share this fantasy with him. So they're dancers and they get a taste of success, but maybe the success comes a little too late, or maybe, you know, they just don't pick up the momentum, and there's a very short window of time for a person to be at the peak of physical condition to be a ballet dancer. They're seeing that they're moving out of that window. And so they have to come up with some way of pivoting. Like, you know, we got this taste of success, but like our time as dancers is coming to an end. Like, we can't sustain this. So we got to figure out some way of pivoting. And the way that they come across or land on is to just get these massive, extremely dangerous animals to be in their show, because it's like an immediate cheat code to people will immediately...
Spectacle.
Yeah,
like,
people,
you immediately want to watch that because it's like, oh, these motherfuckers could die.
Yeah. But in order to do that, you have to drastically change your life to start living with wild animals that have like 10 times your strength. Like, what a wild lifestyle choice. Like,
it is, but in another way, I think it's actually really relatable. Like, if you break it down to what are you willing to do to be an artist, I totally relate to it. Like, I personally don't want to fuck a cat, but I have that hunger and that internal momentum of like, I really need to do this thing, you know, be an artist, have this artistic outlet. And if the only way that you could have that artistic outlet is by sacrificing in your personal life in weird ways, that's super relatable to me. I do that all the time. I just don't do it in the way where it might eat me. But like, you know, somebody says, hey, we're going to this thing. You want to come? Sorry, I can't. I have a deadline. Hey, we're going to go over here and we're all meeting up. Do you want to come? I do want to come, but I can't because I have to, you know, make work. And like, I think to an outside person that might sound silly, but like being a full-time artist, it's kind of soul crushing. Like, what's that saying? Find something you love and then let it kill you.
You know, it's funny you say that because you never do that to me. You always make time for the old spappa spicy.
Despite this brutal attack, Ron and Joy maintained their view that training big cats required compassion and love. Even after Joy was mauled, the Holidays continued to perform with Aladdin. Ron himself admits the leash they used was meant for house cat. Oh my God. How crazy is that though? Like, you're just like, all right, I guess I'm just going to use a normal piece of rope to like tie up this crazed fucking feral beast. Like, maybe put like a chain or like something a little bit more intense.
It's fucking crazy because like the difference between like a leopard or a lion or whatever and then like a dog or a cat, aside from the fact that they are like several times stronger and more like physically dangerous, but aside from that, the difference is that dogs and cats over the years have been bred to be domesticated. Like, even if a house cat had the strength of a leopard or whatever, like, they have actually been bred to coexist with humans and not like fucking think we're food and attack and kill us. Wild animals, no matter what you do, you could raise it the whole time. It could live in captivity. It could never have seen another wild animal in its life. But it has these inbred like instincts for, I think was talked about in the Siegfried and Roy episode, like a tiger just sees something movement over here and like just it kicks on an instinct of like, I have to attack that thing to eat, because they're used to living out in the wild where they have to like, at a moment's notice, there could be a predator and they have to start running, or they could, they haven't eaten in a week and they're really hungry and they see movement over here and they're like, I don't care what I just saw, but I have to eat it because I'm hungry and I need to eat food. So no matter what you do, there is inevitably going to be the situation where you just move in the wrong way and this pet that you've had their entire life fucking attacks you, and then you may or may not die. So on top of that, to be like, oh yeah, it's just on a fucking cat leash.
Well, also just like they, feeding it cat food. What the fuck? Its stomach is like the size of your upper torso. You think it's going to just be chill on canned cat food?
Yeah, it's going to hunger for more.
As success continued for the cat dancers, Ron decided it was time to upgrade their pad. Uprooting them from their cramped New Jersey home, Ron and Joy moved to St. Petersburg, Florida for extra space and cat-friendly climate. Once the holidays in Aladdin got settled, Ron purchased 2 more leopards, Venus and Adonis, a jaguar named Demetrios, and 2 tigers, Goliath and Hercules. Just like their first captive cat, Joy cultivated a training technique built on love and adoration for her animals, refusing to use a whip or negative reinforcement of any kind. The holidays instead treated their cats like royalty. Well, when they weren't locked up or performing on stage, at least. This type of big cat training was completely unheard of in those days, and whether or not the restraint and care of the holidays was more compassionate than most trainers, their tactics were ignorant at best, near suicidal at worst. Do we want to check out this?
Yeah, we got a video of these maniacs putzing around their animal compound. Yeah, so they're just hanging out on their in their home in Florida, sun tanning with a fucking tiger. She's just standing on it.
Both wearing ostensibly their underwear.
Yeah, they're in their underwear, just cuddling with a tiger.
Is he feeding it American cheese?
Yeah, he's feeding him slices of cheese.
That doesn't seem good for a leopard.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, at least this tiger is on a leash with it's like a chain, like a big giant chain. I don't know what this song is that's playing. This is strange music to go along with this. But yeah, they're hanging out with these animals, and it's like, if you're an animal lover, I'm sure you feel similarly, but sometimes you see videos like that. Like, I see TikToks of videos like this all the time, because like, I guess there's just like a bunch of rich people in like other countries that just
have tigers and shit.
Tigers, yeah. Like it's just a common thing. Because you'll just be like swiping through TikTok, and there's just like a dude sitting there in his living room, like playing video games with like a fucking lion. And like, when you look at that, like part of you is like, oh, like I wish I had a lion. Like that'd be so cool. But then part of you is just like, this is just like a prelude to a fucking disaster. Like this dude is going to get his head eaten off one day.
Tonight on 2020.
It's going to happen.
You murdered by King Kong the lion.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, 100%. Like we were just talking about it yesterday. I'm still bitter that my wife wouldn't let us keep the baby squirrel that we found. Maybe like 2 years ago, we found a baby squirrel who had like fallen out of its nest or was abandoned. Well, she found it. It wasn't me, but she found a baby squirrel that was like abandoned or fell out of its nest or whatever, like just born. And we looked it up online, and we had to give it some kind of special food that it's like, if you mix baby formula with fucking baking soda, it's the equivalent to the milk that I forget what it was, but it was like something that you said, and give it, and then eventually she took it to a shelter or whatever. But I was like, what if we had a pet squirrel though? Imagine waking up in the morning, there's just a little squirrel running around.
Just imagine Spade J the Fourth just being like, Dad, watch me as I murder this squirrel.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. That's a good point. Who knows what these kids would fucking do with a baby squirrel.
Yeah. In another close call, one of the holiday's cats became fixated on an audience member. To Ron's credit, he sensed a shift in the beast's behavior and shoved his hand in the cat's face to stop him. The cat reacted accordingly and promptly pierced one of its fangs through his wrist. This accident left Ron in a coma for multiple days and was at risk of losing his hand completely. Eventually, he recovered, and despite ever-present alarm bells ringing all around them, the holidays decided the show must go on.
Jesus Christ. I mean, there's so many things about that. I mean, number one, it's like, as a person who goes out to events or whatever, that's just terrifying, because when you go to something, you always like assuming that the people know what they're doing and that it's all fine. Like you go to like an event or whatever, and just like, obviously this is all safe and they figured it all out and I'm not just like actively in danger right now. And then you read something like this and you're like, sometimes people are just fucking winging it. They don't even give a fuck.
Yeah, these motherfuckers are just like, yeah, we don't think anyone's gonna die today.
Yeah, so that's terrifying. And then also, like, he fucking bites through his wrist.
Yep.
And he puts him into a coma, which I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means to get bitten on your arm and then you go into a coma. Was it just like he passed out from the pain, or it pierced like a vital artery or something?
Yeah, you pierce an artery and then you lose a lot of blood and whatever.
Yeah. And he's in a coma and then he wakes up and he's like, you know what? Back to the cat show. Like, I would be done.
Yeah, for real. Any sane professional in the field of exotic animals would balk at the holidays. But general audiences weren't as attentive. Instead, they continued to buy tickets, speak the cat dancers' praises, and reinforce the notion that big cats were the key to a lifetime of success. Since moving to St. Petersburg, the holidays had held a yearly event in their yard for neighbors and friends, performing for their very small crowd of well-wishers and small children. Ron and Joy's big cats were the closest proximity possible to the guests. At one such event, a young child approached one of the cages and stuck a finger through the bars. You can probably guess what happened next. Within minutes, the holidays personally rushed the child to the emergency room. When the staff inclined as to the nature of the child's gruesome injury, the holidays once again covered up their crimes of their cats, now an all-too-common thread in their lives. As news articles and local gossip spread over their captive cat lifestyle, Ron and Joy felt the heat. To keep their big cats away from prying eyes and daring neighborhood kids, the holidays receded further into the type of rural communities that they had once fled. In 1992, the holidays were hired by Royal Henford Circus for a 3-month engagement. So the holidays packed up their big cats for the summer in Maryland, where Joy's ability to engage the cats with choreography, music, and their own natural behaviors was a highlight of the circus. And with Ron's sterling showmanship front and center, they soon attracted an entirely different kind of audience. Chuck Lizza was a 27-year-old stagehand who worked in the circus alongside the cat dancers. Enamored by their training tactics and dazzling personalities, Chuck soon began spending his free time with the couple. Ron had no qualms about sharing his immediate attraction to Chuck, and he was not alone. According to his best friend and coworker, Chuck was truly smitten with Mrs. Holiday, and for her part, Joy was just as enthralled. Before long, the holidays began a romantic fling with the much younger man, and according to Ron, the trio became inseparable.
I like how Ron, he's like, in my fantasies, I just imagine you as a cat. I just imagine you as just like a big, sexy cat. And he's like, do you ever feel that way, Joy? And she's like, yeah, sometimes in my fantasies, I just imagine you as just a different, younger, sexier guy.
Once their contract with the Royal Henford Circus came to an end, the holidays and their big cats returned to Florida, with Chuck Lizza in tow.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
What does it mean?
What is it? Where's this story going?
Is he just a really good friend?
Yeah.
They brought him along because he's like a good little pal to hang out with.
Who can say? Do you have anything that you'd like to promote this episode?
You can go to my website, dapricerights.com, and you can get my book, Deadbolt AI Private Eye, which is a book about a robot detective fighting crime in the future. What about you? You got anything?
Yeah. I've made a strange labyrinthian book that's a meditation on the creative process and how we sometimes can get lost in mazes of our own making called Mary Tyler Moorhawk, published through Top Shelf. If you'd like to find out, you can do so wherever books are sold. Indie bookstores probably should be your preference, but if not, and you need the ease, it is available on Amazon. Mary Tyler Moorhawk. That's it for me.
If you want to follow us, you can go to Facebook and search Deep Cuts Podcast. You can go to Instagram and search Deep Cuts Pod. You can follow us on TikTok at Mystery Treehouse. You can join our Facebook group by going to Facebook and searching the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group, where we talk about the show, make memes, all that fun stuff. You can join our Discord server, bit.ly.com/deepcutsdiscord, where there's a cool little community that talks about the show, makes memes, and other cool stuff.
Act 2. Dancers in the Dark. For a while, life on the holiday compound was bliss for the newly minted throuple. Chuck immediately took to big cat living, and despite his complete lack of training, he soon began assisting with daily duties. Once Chuck got a handle on feedings and petting sessions, he was working backstage during live shows. And from there, he quickly became a certified cat dancer, along with his lovers. Well, as certified as one could be with Ron and Joy running things. The history of exotic animal performers is riddled with wounds and corpses of those who chose a similar path. The Siegfried and Roy tragedy eventually became the most well-known case, but even in the cat dancers' heyday, there were many instances of such savagings. Take, for instance, the 1981 cult film Roar, in which over 70 cast and crew members were attacked by exotic animal co-stars. Or the time the Church of Satan founder Anton LaVey's pet lion nearly killed Jane Mansfield's son.
What a fucking Mad Lib.
I know, right? Like, that doesn't sound real.
Anton LaVey's pet lion attacked Jane Mansfield's son.
All of these notable and newsworthy instances acted as caution signs on the road to disaster, and yet the cat dancers seemed to sashay right past them. Ron says that it was his idea to bring one more big cat into the family. Like all their other animals, the Holidays adopted Jupiter, a white tiger, when he was just a few months old, and Jupiter would soon prove to be more than an average handful. Jupiter, like virtually every other white tiger, was inbred and therefore riddled with temperamental disorders and overall health issues. But despite his cranky nature and despondent attitude, Jupiter, to everyone's surprise, latched on to Chuck. Even though the cat dancer's family was certainly dysfunctional, it's clear that Chuck and the Holidays adored Jupiter.
Chuck must have just been a little sweetheart.
Dude.
Because, like, everybody loved him.
Yeah.
It's like Joy is like, oh, this dude's hot. I want him to bring him into the fold as our third. And Ron was like, fuck it. Me too. And then even the tiger was like, listen, I'm a fucking tiger. I'm also like an inbred, fucked up white tiger that hates everybody. And just if you even look at me wrong, I'll fucking eat you. But this dude, Chuck, he's my boy.
Dude, Chuck Lizza, that's a hell of a cute name, you know? Like, Chuck Lizza, more like Chuck, I like him.
Yeah, Chuck Lizza. There wasn't a thing. There wasn't a thing.
There wasn't a thing there.
But he's a little sweetheart no matter what. He's beyond pithy little puns and shit.
There's like a special place in heaven for Chuck.
Yeah, hopefully.
To that effect, Ron was always looking for ways to improve the lives of his big cats. As such, on October 8th, 1988, a work crew had arrived early to set up a new enclosure. To get the area ready for visitors, Ron attempted to move Jupiter out of his open cage and into a bedding trailer by himself. But Jupiter instantly became alarmed by the workers and refused to move an inch. Because Jupiter was Chuck's quote-unquote baby, Ron called out for his help. Still half asleep, Chuck leapt out of bed, hauled on a pair of flimsy moccasins, and dashed outside. Once in the yard, Chuck came running over to help Ron with Jupiter. But according to Ron, the young man slipped on a loose chain link that was intended for this new enclosure. Chuck allegedly fell on top of Jupiter, and as tigers do, the animal simply reacted. The enormous white tiger instantly clamped its jaws over his trainer's throat, and in one swift bite, Chuck was dead.
Jesus Christ. Imagine just being like asleep in your bed. You're just like dreaming about eating a giant marshmallow, and you wake up and your pillow's gone.
just eat a giant marshmallow, and then the next day you've got really interesting shits.
Yes. And you just like wake up and someone's like, hey, can you come out here for a second? And you run out, and then you just get eaten by a tiger.
Hey, would you mind checking in? And then your life is over.
Yeah, like, fuck.
Yeah, man. Those are the dice you're rolling when you say, I'm going to live with not one, not two, but 6 big cats, bro.
Yeah. Life in general is kind of, some things can kind of come out of nowhere and kind of hit you, sideways when you're not expecting it. But especially whenever you live with 6 giant tigers, like, you could wake up one day and just be like, what's for dead.
Just fucking, I think today I'm going to, dead.
Yep.
What if dead.
Yep. Any second.
Any second. In the immediate aftermath of Chuck's tragic killing, the Holidays first sought to protect their beloved Jupiter. Because they're crazy people.
I love animals too. I mean, you're the irresponsible one in the first place that is keeping these tigers, so really it's on you. It's not like the animal's fault. So I agree with you there. I agree that it's not the animal's fault, really. But at that point, this tiger kills somebody.
Yeah, you were like, I loved fucking Chuck, but not as much as I love petting this cat?
Yeah.
You've got 5 other cats. Just hang out with them.
Yeah.
Despite having ended the life of their shared lover, they begged the arriving officers to spare the tiger's life. And because Chuck's family also proclaimed Jupiter's innocence, the local force allowed the Holidays to keep their fearsome friend.
That's also wild too.
Well, it's because the tiger was white.
Yes, exactly.
If that shit was a panther, dead.
Yep, dead immediately. Yeah, I mean, that's fucking crazy, though. I mean, I know it's an animal and it's different, but, imagine if you just, murdered somebody and then the cops showed up and they're just like, no, but, he won't do it again. And they're like, all right, just you watch out.
All right, you.
I got my eye on you. And not actually, because I don't have time to, watch a random person, but, you keep your nose clean. No more murdering, okay? I don't want to have to come back here.
After refusing to eat for days and weeks on end, Joy was a shell of her former self. Weak and barely able to leave her bed, the daily routines of big cat care fell on Ron exclusively. During those forlorn days following the tragedy, his wife and lifelong partner allegedly uttered a morbid wish. Joy Holiday said that she wanted to die, and to die like Chuck. Knowing that her life was at stake, mutual friends of the Holidays gathered at their Florida home. The cat dancer's publicist and the late Chuck Lizza's best friend both made the journey to help an ailing Joy. Attempting to pull her from shock and to support a mutually suffering Ron, the pair decided to stay long-term. Thankfully, over the next couple weeks, they watched a once rapidly deteriorating Joy start to regain some of her facilities.
Here's the thing. I don't care how good of a friend you are. If there's a tiger in your house that fucking murders somebody, and then you're like, will you come live with me? I'm so depressed. But you still live with the tiger? I'd be like, nah.
Here's the thing. How many exchange of bodily fluids do we think happened?
Oh, all of them.
You know what I mean? If they were like, we're so sad, if only there was some way for a new person to come live with us and make me feel better somehow.
Yeah, and just, is the closest possible transitive person to Chuck because you're his best friend.
You look kind of like Chuck. If I squint, you're almost, Chuck used to do this thing with his tongue.
Oh, Chuck. I mean, Chuck's best friend. That's not better.
On November 13th, Joy and her guests were watching Judge Judy just shooting the breeze. It's easy to imagine Joy's dazzling laugh as she gawked at the silly courtroom drama with her concerned friends. But during the hangout session, Ron made a puzzling request to his mourning wife.
I said, Joy, the babies miss you. Will you come and help me feed them? And she said, I think I will. And I thought, yes.
And so Ron and Joy headed for the enclosures where their cats waited to be transferred and fed for the morning. All seemed normal with Ron's account, but when Joy approached Jupiter's trailer, everything went wrong. Ron, and even her friends, say that in her declining state, Joy's body was shaking and her frame had withered, perhaps sensing easier prey than he was used to, or maybe knowing Joy's morbid wish, Jupiter struck.
It was just your typical day. house cleaning being taken care of, the cats being taken care of. Joy was doing some paperwork, and I think Barbara was also working on a little promotion for the cat dancers.
And then we decided to have a little bit of downtime and sat down on the sofa. And we were watching Judge Judy, and that day they had some pretty crazy cases, and she was even laughing a little bit, thinking, how could people be so dumb? You know. And so we started feeling, wow, she's starting to get a little bit of life back in her being. She wants to go on.
She wants to go on.
I was getting ready to feed the animals. I
Whoa.
went up to her
Oh,
and I
shit.
said, Hon, you haven't seen the babies. They miss you. Could you come and help me with them? And she went, you know what?
That is all of the plastic surgery.
Yes.
Man, aging is rough, but it's even more rough when you don't accept the fact that you have to age.
Yeah.
She was extremely weak.
Also, that guy is just wearing like a wig that is, can I get 1962 John Lennon?
Yeah, he's got like 1962 John Lennon or like Justin Bieber
Oh, yeah.
wig.
Mm-hmm.
And then his face is just shellacked.
Yeah.
He's already embalmed.
Yeah, his face is, can I get the mummy aesthetic?
Yeah.
White tiger, Jupiter.
That's Ron, by the way, that we're talking about.
I had
That's Ron speaking right there.
She brought him in. And she went, here, baby, and she started shaking like this. Really. And she started falling forward. And as she's falling forward, he grabbed her by the neck and threw her. She hit the ceiling and bounced on the floor.
Woof. Woof.
I heard banging, clashing of the metal cages.
I heard this bang, bang, bang.
And I knew something terrible happened, something really bad.
And I said, Ron, are you okay? He said, no, I'm not okay. And then he started running across the yard saying, he killed my joy, he killed my joy, he killed my joy.
I ran right past him. He was just sitting there. I ran right past him and went in the house. I had a gun, and I went into the bedroom.
I knew if Ron shot Jupiter, he would just piss him off, wound him a little bit, make him angry, and then possibly turn the gun on himself.
Russell came, and he hit me, and he took the guns.
So I grabbed the gun, got it away from Ron, held his hand, and we went out the front door outside the compound, and we went around to the side where the back of the trailer was, where Joy was. And he was in shock. He was out of it. He was screaming, crying, crawling on the ground. You know, it was horrible. And I looked over at Joy, and I knew then she had already passed.
That was it. That was the end of Joy, you know?
Please say no pun intended.
Devastation is nothing. Find a worse word. You know, I wouldn't go through that again, ever. I couldn't live through that. I don't know anyone who could.
I love how they went from, we must protect this tiger at all costs. It murdered our lover and friend, but like, it's still our baby, to like, I'm going to bust a cap in this fucking tiger's ass.
Yeah. It's also just so sad.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm joking through the fucking
It's
depression,
so
because
bleak.
that shit is bleak. Although I do have to point out that this is very funny. In the comment section of this video we just watched, somebody said, when her son died, they should have gotten rid of Jupiter. It was obviously not going to ever be the same again. Sweetie, that was not their son.
Because Ron is the surviving witness of this attack, we must take his word as the only truth. And by his claim, Jupiter grabbed Joy Holiday by the neck, tossing her body into the air so high that it hit the roof of the trailer, and watched his former owner collide with the floor. When paramedics were able to evaluate the scene, it was documented that Joy had died instantly. But before Joy Holiday's body could be removed from the enclosure, local law enforcement had a tiger to contend with. When officers arrived at the scene, Jupiter still paced back and forth between his trailer and enclosure, idly padding past the corpse. It has been said that the officers were within their rights to shoot the tiger on sight, but asked for Ron's permission as a courtesy. For the first time, the last surviving cat dancer, agreed. Within a few weeks, Ron Holiday went from living the life of his dreams to a waking nightmare. In just a few quick flashes, everything he loved was taken away from him. And though he tried to continue caring for his big cats that he once shared with his partners, Ron finally gave up and decided to move on. Ultimately, Ron had the controversial choice to have all of his remaining big cats euthanized. And it's hard not to see it just as another tragedy in a long line of many. But it also should be considered that Ron was originally offered a large amount of sum for the animals, and not to another exotic animal aficionado either. Ron was approached by a group that offered specialty hunts in Texas, meaning a group of guys with a bunch of land who purchase exotic animals for the sole purpose of having them gunned down by lazy, extremely wealthy hunters. Even if Ron Holiday's decision to medically exterminate his animals seems cruel, it's worth noting that he loved his animals enough not to try and make a quick buck off of their tragedy. After so many losses and the worst possible press imaginable, Ron retreated from the world. Now the owner of a pack of rowdy dogs, he stays clear of any exotic animal purchases. Ron has also never remarried and seems to live a quiet and solitary life. But many years after the tragedy, he got a job as a ballet teacher and continues giving lessons to this day. I guess it goes to show you, you can take the cat out of the cat dancer, but you can't take the dance out of Ron Holiday.
Man, a ballet teacher with the darkest backstory ever.
Yeah, he just shows up and he's like, all right, everybody, today we're going to learn how to plie. Also, everyone I've ever known or loved or fucked is either dead or dead because I had them euthanized. Anyway, this is the starting position.
Like, my God. Well, here's the thing. It's so bleak, but also, and part of me, a big part of me definitely feels sympathy. Like, I'm not just like fucking callous about it. Like, that's so sad. I mean, it was sad for Joy when she was still alive, whenever Chuck died, and it's sad for Ron and making the decision of euthanizing the animals. But also, like, these people were just like doing an incredibly irresponsible thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this was so irresponsible and dangerous. And it's kind of like, it's not even like, what do you expect? It's not even like, oh, well, you should have seen this coming, or like, you know, stupid games win stupid prizes, or whatever, that thing that people say. It's just more like, this is kind of your fault.
It's not kinda, it just is actively your fault.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he loved his animals enough to not sell them to hunters. And it's like, yeah, but they were all euthanized because you chose to like buy them and keep them in your fucking house until they inevitably killed somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder his level of guilt and self-flagellization, right? Like, there's no way that doesn't stick with you. There's no way that you don't question your choices and question, like, fuck, why did I do this?
Oh, it definitely would me. Like, this would ruin my life. I would never be able to move on from that. Like, this is all directly my fault. I had this weird furry dream, and I went and sought out these cats, and it just directly led to my wife and my lover / friend / just another person, even if they weren't any of those things to me, getting brutally killed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the episode, this kind of idea of a commitment to an artistic discipline that doesn't make sense outside of this little ecosystem that you've kind of built for yourself, a permission structure to allow for these kind of unconventional choices. You know, because you're from this rural background, people don't, you know, obviously he was at the very least bi, if not gay, and in a relationship with a straight woman as a beard / working partner, right? Your entire existence up until this point, everyone is telling you, this is crazy, don't do it. And you go out on a limb, you have success, you prove everyone wrong, and then time catches up with you, and it's like, fuck, I can't be a dancer at 30. Shit. All right, well, I'll do this outlandish thing that everyone also says I shouldn't do and doesn't make sense and is going to fuck me up. But, like, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, I've successfully won. I've beat the system.
Yeah.
I can beat it again. And then you just play that Russian roulette every day until you lose, which is inevitable.
Yeah, it's like the extreme example of that. You know, it works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like you said, they proved everyone wrong. They became very successful. Everything was working out for them. And all of those thoughts of like, oh, this is dangerous. Every day they were actively proving to themselves and probably others as well that it actually wasn't that dangerous and it was fine. It's like every day that they successfully lived with these fucking tigers was a day of them just proving to everybody like, oh yeah, actually we know what we're doing. We're experts. We can do this safely and everything's fine and nobody gets hurt. And then one day it just doesn't anymore.
On that note, I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Spandrew Spice.
If you'd like to find me online, you can do so at heydavebaker.com. You can find my book, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, wherever books are sold. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can get my book, Deadbolt AI Private Eye, by going to dapricerights.com. You can follow us on social media by going to Facebook and searching Deep Cuts Podcast. You can join our Facebook group by searching Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. Join there and we talk about the show and hang out and all kinds of cool stuff. You can join our Discord server by going to bit.ly.com/deepcutsdiscord, where we talk about the show, make memes, play games, all kinds of other fun stuff. You can follow us on Instagram at DeepCutsPod. You can follow us on TikTok at Mystery Treehouse. You can follow me on TikTok at Deadboy Detective. Deep Cuts is a production by Boy Genius Media. If you'd like to find this show and others like it, please visit boygeniusmedia.com or deepcutspod.com.
If you want to join in on post-episode discussions, please join the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. Finally, subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional video content.
The incidental music for this episode was created by D. Catalano, whose music can be found at wekeepoddhours.bandcamp.com. This episode of Deep Cuts was guest written by Matthew Mitchell. If you'd be interested in writing an episode of Deep Cuts, email us at andrew@boygeniusmedia.com.